The concept of family is one of the strangest, most profound realities of the human experience. When you really sit back and think about it, it's the ultimate lottery. You didn't choose to be born, and you didn't get a say in the family you ended up with. You were just dropped into a specific reality, handed a set of people, and told, "This is your life." Now, there is a whole school of thought across various spiritual and cultural traditions that suggests it isn't actually a lottery at all. There are those who believe that before we ever stepped foot on this earth, our souls actively picked our families, our trials, and our environments for the sake of our own evolution. And while that may be true, the cosmic rulebook has a massive catch. We are wiped completely clean of that memory. We have absolutely no conscious awareness of any choice ever happening. So, to our human minds, to our day-to-day experience, it feels entirely out of our hands. We operate as if we were dropped onto specific coordinates on Earth with zero control over the foundation of our lives. Think about how much of your life was completely decided for you before you even had a single independent thought. Some people are born into wealth, where their baseline reality includes financial security, networking connections, and a safety net that allows them to fail comfortably. Others are born into middle-class families, where life is a constant balancing act of hard work, comfort, and a subtle, lingering awareness of budgeting. And then, some people are born into poverty, where the baseline is survival, stress, and navigating a world that feels rigged against them from day one. But it goes so much deeper than just money. You are also born into a specific culture, a specific language, a specific environment, and a specific worldview. Take religion, for example. We are born into completely different belief systems depending entirely on where and to whom we are born. As children, we naturally take after those beliefs. We do what those religions tell us to do, pray the way we are taught to pray, and view the cosmos through the lens our parents handed us. We believe it deeply for years because it's all we know. But eventually, as you grow older, you hit a point where you start to look into it for yourself. You begin to question if it actually resonates with your internal truth. Whether you ultimately decide that those beliefs are true or false for you, the power shifts. You get to decide whether you want to drop those beliefs, modify them, or stick with them because you genuinely choose to, not just because you were told to. But until we reach that age of awareness, we spend our most formative years acting like complete sponges. We don't just live with our families, we absorb them. We watch how our parents handle stress, how they argue, how they love, and how they view the world. For the most part, we end up taking after them in ways we don't even realize until we're much older. We adopt their mannerisms, their speech patterns, their coping mechanisms, and their lifestyles. If we were given a conscious choice on day one, a lot of us probably wouldn't have chosen these specific ways of living or thinking. Yet, we are raised up in them anyway. The terrifying part is that when you're a child, your family is your entire universe. You have no frame of reference to know if what they are teaching you is actually good for you or if it's completely destructive. To a kid, whatever happens inside the walls of their house is just normal. And that normal can look wildly different depending on the lottery you won. You could be born into a family that is incredibly healthy. A family that prioritizes taking care of their bodies, exercises together, cooks nutritious meals, and treats physical well-being as a natural part of daily life. If you grow up in that environment, health isn't a chore. It's just your baseline normal. You don't have to fight your upbringing to stay in shape because your upbringing handed you the blueprint for it. But on the flip side, you could just as easily be born into a family that is deeply unhealthy. An environment where junk food is the staple, where physical activity is non-existent, and where taking care of your body is never discussed. If that's your childhood, then eating poorly and neglecting your health becomes your baseline. This behavior matching doesn't stop with the people who raise us either. It extends to everyone we choose to surround ourselves with. Think about your friends. If you hang around a specific group of people who do things you don't truly agree with, their habits slowly bleed into your life. They become a bad influence, and almost completely by accident, you start taking after them. Humans are tribal creatures. We adapt to our surroundings whether we intentionally mean to or not. The reasons why we are who we are, why we react the way we do, and why we think the way we think are heavily tied to the fact that we grew up in environments where those exact behaviors were modeled as the standard. A lot of us wake up later in life and realize we don't actually want to do these things anymore. We realize we don't want to believe the things we were taught to believe. We might look in the mirror and realize we don't even like the way we think or the way we automatically react to problems. When you reach that crossroads, a massive shift has to happen. You have to look at your life, your habits, your fears, and your lifestyle. And you have to pull yourself out of autopilot to ask the ultimate question: is this who I actually want to be? Is this what I truly believe in? Is this how I want to live my life? This is the exact moment you have to decide whether you want to continue living out the script you were handed, or if you want to find out who you really are beneath all the conditioning. You have to give yourself permission to do the things you want to do and stop doing things simply because you were raised to do them. Deconstructing your upbringing is incredibly heavy. It requires you to look at the people who raised you or the friends you grew up with, people you might love deeply, and objectively filter their influence. But here's the nuance that most people miss. Deconstruction doesn't mean total destruction. It doesn't mean you have to burn down your entire past or turn into a completely unrecognizable person overnight. Just because you don't agree with everything your family does, it doesn't mean there isn't genuine good in them or in how they raised you. This is a patient, intentional process of sorting through the pieces. You have to look at the positive things in your life and intentionally keep what helps you evolve. For example, if you grew up in a family that taught you how to be deeply forgiving, or a home where hospitality and kindness to strangers were the norm, you recognize the value in that. You hold on to it, use it, and let it strengthen your character. But it's rarely that simple, is it? Even in the absolute best households, where you are loved and cared for, you can still look back and realize there are elements of that normal you simply no longer agree with. Maybe it's a specific mindset, an unconscious prejudice, or a reaction to conflict that you've realized you just don't want to carry forward. Part of growing up is realizing that your family, as well-intentioned as they might have been, are just human beings trying to figure out life themselves. They aren't perfect, and you don't have to keep carrying their specific flaws just because they handed them to you. And it gets even heavier if you grew up in a particularly strict or rigid environment. In those kinds of families, the mold is cast very early, and the expectations are massive. If you step even an inch outside of what they deem acceptable, you aren't just met with disagreement, you're met with a deep, crushing wave of guilt. You might find yourself wanting to try a new career path, express yourself differently, or explore a passion that your family completely disapproves of. We aren't talking about destructive or harmful behaviors here. We're talking about normal, healthy human curiosity. But because of the way you were conditioned, just thinking about stepping outside that line makes you feel like you're doing something profoundly wrong. You have to realize that this guilt is a byproduct of the mold, not a reflection of your character. As long as what you want to try is safe, healthy, and isn't causing harm to anyone, you have every right to explore it. You aren't a bad person for wanting to discover who you are outside of the family dynamic. The goal of your life isn't to be a perfect carbon copy of the generation that came before you. Your mission is to cut out the negatives, drop the limiting beliefs that keep you small, and find the courage to do the things you actually love. You have to give yourself permission to shatter that unintentional mold, step out of the autopilot your environment built for you, and finally decide who you want to be. Because when you stop operating on autopilot, you stop letting the fear of judgment dictate your path. This is where you have to look closely at your life, at the things you say, the things you do, and the things you believe. And honestly ask yourself if those are things you actually chose, or if they're just habits you carried over from your environment. You have to find out who you really are by evaluating what truly belongs to you and cutting out the negative conditioning that doesn't. It is a difficult, sometimes painful, sorting process to separate the love you have for your family from the behaviors you refuse to replicate. But it's time to shed those artificial layers, stop fitting into a pre-made mold that you didn't create, and start doing the things that actually matter to you. When we look closely at our lives and realize that we are doing things we don't fully agree with, it is a tough thing to face. It forces us to confront our own flaws. But honestly, it is also a wonderful, beautiful realization, whether you are young or old. Because that awareness means you are finally awake. You have the rare, powerful ability to redefine your own normal, rebuild your own baseline, and decide exactly what kind of life you want to cultivate moving forward. You get to determine right now what you choose to believe, how you react, and exactly who you want to be. You can choose to look at your family, appreciate the positive traits they pass down to you, and carry those forward while deliberately letting go of the habits and mindsets that hold you back. Stepping into this level of awareness is a journey, and while it's challenging at first, it is an incredibly fulfilling experience. When you start to actively cut out those negative inherited patterns, you unlock the space to become a genuinely better, more caring, and more loving person. Drop the habits that hold you back and fill your time doing the things that you genuinely love. Letting go of what was forced upon you allows you to finally step into the person you actually want to be, making your life infinitely more meaningful and enjoyable. If this message resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.